bold to assume that messy people have any habits at all. This is coming from someone who is trying to reform their messy ways, and I would argue my habits didn't even really exist because I just don't like rigid habits.
What's the first syllable in routine?
So I'm really curious to see what Marissa has to say about the 5 habits of messy people. So let's get right into it.
Are you a messy person? Do you have a sink that's full of dirty dishes and a bedroom floor that you're not even sure is there because you can't see it through the piles of clean and or dirty clothes lying on the floor? Well, I'm here today to tell you that there is no such thing as a messy person. There are only messy habits. And that's actually a good thing, because if it's a habit, that means that you can break the habit. And that's why today I'm sharing this list of messy habits that are cluttering up your home and giving you a few tips and strategies to help you kick the bad habits and swap them out with tidy habits instead.
My dishes, for the most part, I do keep up on them during the week. And every so often there's just a few days, like usually on a Friday or something, where I'm like, I'll do it Sunday. So I do have more dishes in my sink right now than I normally do, but I have gotten a lot better about keeping up on them. As far as the clothes on the floor, I have gotten so much better about this with hooks on the back of my bedroom door. And I'm not saying I never toss anything down, but I've usually catch myself and then I'm like, no, I have hooks now, or, put it in the laundry because, it should go in the laundry.
I'm Marissa, and this is A to Zen Life, where I teach you the A to Z of simplifying your home and restoring balance to your life. Let's dive in. Messy habit number 1 is that you're not making the bed in the morning. And this is important because if you think about it, your bedroom is the last thing that you see before you go to sleep. And it's the first thing that greets your eyes when you wake up in the morning. And when you make your bed in the morning, you're setting the tone for the rest of the day. And that one flat, clear surface kind of gives you a launch pad to tidy up more stuff the rest of the day. Maybe it's coming back in to sort laundry and you have a clean bed to sit down to.
I don't do a full-on make the bed every single morning. Usually if I do, it's, clean sheet day or it's Sunday and I'm trying to start off my week right. I years ago had started at least putting the covers over the sheet because then, I have cats. I've had cats for since I was like 16, 17. So I always wanted to keep hair and litter out of, the sheets. So I am pretty good about doing a baseline make the bed. It's not necessarily the most beautiful. I don't put on all the throw pillows unless, again, it's usually clean sheet day or I'm trying to start off my week right.
That's where I sort my laundry and I do the folding. And I know that I like and enjoy doing the laundry more when I have a nice, clean, tidy bed instead of a bed that's a mess. And research shows that people who live in cluttered environments are more likely to experience sleep deprivation and insomnia, or just have trouble sleeping in general. And so making the bed is one of those things that has been found to actually improve sleep and sleep hygiene. And then in a clean and tidy environment, you're more likely to feel well rested, which is more likely to make you have a positive state of mind. And it's going to make you more likely to keep up those good, clutter-free and tidying habits.
I like kind of what she says here, and that's a really interesting study. I had never actually heard that. One of the other reasons, aside from trying to keep cat hair and litter out from the sheets, again, it's nothing fancy, is I actually learned this from a friend who said she doesn't make her bed for the classic reason of you start out your day and you can check one thing off the list and you feel like you got one accomplishment done. That's not it at all. It is more every day you wake up, you might have a thought of what the day might entail. But realistically, none of us ever really knows what's going to happen from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. And if you're having a normal or good day, it's just a nice treat at the end of the day. If you're having a terrible day or something more tragic has happened, then that's a level of comfort that you can go and get into a well-made bed instead of looking at, lumped up sheets and, everything kind of everywhere. I thought that was incredibly powerful. And I will say it's always nice to go to bed at even a decently made bed. And the days that were harder, made it a little bit easier to go to bed with that level of comfort and self-care. Like, it's almost like future self-care for the days that you don't know when you are going to need that self-care and that extra little something.
Messy habit number 2 is that you haven't put your entryway routine on autopilot. And if you're someone who just kind of throws your stuff down wherever when you come in the home, that's a recipe for misplacing and losing things, which can waste a lot of time searching for them when you're trying to get out the door, which can quite often make us late to work, late to school, late to wherever. And in fact, one study found that Americans on average spend 2.5 days a year looking for lost items.
2.5 days a year. I never heard that. So I guess that's my sign to start getting better. And I do typically have certain drop zones, kind of. So I typically know where to look, but there's still times where I feel like my brain just like glitches out and I set down my keys somewhere completely out of the norm. And then the next morning I'm struggling, obviously. So let's see how she says to put it on autopilot, because that would be super helpful.
Just like your bedroom, the entryway is also an important space because it's the first thing that greets you when you come home and the last thing you see when you head out the door for the day. My husband is Chinese and he introduced me to the concept of feng shui. And in feng shui, they believe that the entryway is a critical point in your home because that's where you welcome the flow of positive energy into your home. And therefore, if you have a lot of trash and clutter and shoes and coats and things lying around in the entryway of your home, that can lead to this feeling of stuck energy. Whereas if you have a clean and tidy entryway that allows the good and positive energy and good luck to flow into your home and bring you all the goodness that comes along with it.
I'm 42, going on 43, which means I've been exposed to feng shui and that whole huge trend there. I think it was like late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. Actually, my first decluttering book I ever read was, hang on, let me go get it off the bookshelf because I actually rebought it after someone, has indefinitely borrowed it.
A few moments later.
And I'm totally fine that they're indefinitely borrowing it because my understanding is the husband has hoarder tendencies. They're welcome to keep it as long as they need and hopefully donate it at some point. I actually took the jacket off because sometimes I don't like the jackets or it gets beat up. But this was the first decluttering essentially book that I ever read because, we were all into feng shui at some point. Feng shui, I don't know. Aside from the principles of feng shui or whatever it is, it's okay. Go ahead and correct me if you know the proper way. This actually has a lot of really practical advice about decluttering and will eventually make it into a review of books that I feel are very helpful. This book has a lot of fantastic tips, at least started getting me to look at my stuff with a different lens even before I ever went down the minimalism path. The first copy I bought at one of those bargain bookstores in the mall. So a while ago, probably 15 years ago. I still think this stands the test of time, even if you're not actually interested in feng shui organization. So I'm curious, which way do you pronounce it? Do you pronounce it feng shui or have you pronounced it feng shui? I'll be interested to see which one wins.
Now, even if you don't believe in feng shui, you probably know that when your entryway is a mess, it can make you feel really stressed out and overwhelmed. So I encourage you to think about your entryway routine and figure out what habits you can create as far as coming home that will help you keep everything organized and tidy right when you walk in the door. So as for my family and myself, when we walk in the door, the first thing we do is close the door and lock it. Then we take off our shoes. Sometimes my kids need to clean the sand off their feet if they've played at the sand park at school. Then what I do is I reach over and I put my keys in the small wooden bowl that sits in my husband's office on his cabinet. And then we all hang up our coats on the coat rack. And then we all head to the bathroom to wash our hands to clear off the germs from the day.
My front entrance is well, I don't even know if it exists because it's almost like you just come straight into the living room because of the layout of the house. So that tends to stay pretty clear, but that's also because I don't really use it. I use the back door all the time. It's closer to the garage, so it makes sense for me. And it's a little bit of a weird entrance. So it's been years since I've looked at feng shui or feng shui and determined whether the principle applies to if it's your front door entrance or the one that you actually use all of the time. However, we also recently reacted to Nick Lewis, and he's starting to get me to remember, hey, I have hooks back there for a reason. I have actually considered installing a little bit of a decorative shelf as well to place a few things on if I feel like I need it. This is just telling me, honestly, I just have to get a lot better about being more intentional with all of my actions coming and going, and just like everything else, reevaluate my setup and see if it's still working or not.
And because we've created these habits and made this routine, that means that when I need to go looking for something to leave, I always know where it's going to be, whether it's my keys or my purse or the shoes that my children want to wear. Everything has a place, and therefore it's easy to find what we need when we're ready to head out. Messy habit number 3 is that you shop according to impulse. And you might be wondering, what do your shopping habits have to do with your home being messy? Well, it actually has a lot to do with it, because when you're shopping based on emotions and you're making these impulsive buys and then you bring them home only to realize you didn't really want or need that thing, then those things are likely to then become clutter that's just taking up a lot of space in your home and wasting your time maintaining it and the money that you spent buying it.
Yeah, I have to put myself back on a no spend because there are some things that I kind of let myself go down a rabbit hole on because, I'm going to be saving money in the long run with them, like, press on nails as opposed to getting my nails done all of the time. So, I get what she's saying. I gotta get better about that. And really I have. I've gotten so much better than I used to be in the past. I do have a lot of very full shopping carts online in the, internet space. That is one technique I've been using, is just go ahead and fill up the cart. And if I still want it later, then maybe I reevaluate it or look at it again or remove some things. A lot of times those things do sit in the cart for a really long time. So I am making a lot of progress on that. And yeah.
So if you're able to look at your shopping habits and stop those impulse buys before they happen, then you're going to cut out a lot of the clutter before it can even enter your home. Basically, you're cutting off clutter at its source. Clutter can't become clutter if it never has the chance to enter your home.
But I'm kind of glad she said it that way because, we know things are going to enter our homes. It's not going to change, but I think that's a really powerful thing to have, in the back of my mind from now on, is this just going to become clutter? Because if it enters my home, it's going to become clutter. And is it clutter that I'm willing to maintain? I think that's also something important, is, am I willing to maintain this item for the next year, 5 years, however long it's designed to last?
I've actually done an entire video on impulse buys and how to stop them. So make sure to go check out this video if that's something that you need help with. Messy habit number 4 is that you're putting things down instead of putting them away.
I feel a little bit attacked right now. Again, I'm getting a lot better after reading Atomic Habits and also listening to it. There's a lot of intentionality that I feel like I'm getting a lot better at. It's just really continuing to practice that intentionality.
And take, for example, this Pringles container. After I'm done with the Pringles container, I might be tempted to just set it down and leave it on the counter. But when I do that over and over with the things in my home, let's say in my kitchen, I just keep setting things down on the counter instead of putting them away. Well, over time, those are going to build up and build up.
Okay, I was laughing about the Pringles cans because one of my favorite snacks lately is the Cheetos Minis. They're basically cheese balls, but they're in exactly a Pringles can. I assume it's the same manufacturer. And there's something about Pringles cans because they just take up so much space in your trash. So you don't want to necessarily put them in the trash right away. And then you think, well, this could be useful somehow, except that I still haven't found a use for any Pringles can ever. And I still think about it every time I have one of those cans laying around of what could I possibly use this for, because it seems useful and yet it is not.
And make the flat surfaces in my kitchen feel cluttered when I could have taken just a few moments to simply put the one thing away right when I was done with it. So instead of simply putting things down once you're done with them, make it a habit to put them away instead. And that means that you'll save yourself the effort later trying to put a whole bunch of stuff away all at once.
Yeah, this is something like I've gotten also a little bit away from, is remembering that future me is going to thank me now for the things that I do now. That was a little bit of a statement that I learned in college, and I was a late bloomer, and I didn't go to college until I was 28. So I was probably in my early 30s when a much younger student had said, well, if I do my homework now, future me will thank me later. And I was like, huh, I never thought of it that way. And I had gotten really good about thinking about future me, and like everything else, it eventually goes by the wayside. So I'm going to try to re-implement that as just a general mindset of if future me is going to thank me later.
By the way, I would just like to say that this is by far the most enjoyable thumbnail I've ever shot for my YouTube channel. Sour cream and onion Pringles are my favorite, and this is the exact moment my husband walked in on me and discovered me sitting there taking this picture. So that was fun. Messy.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I love when people break the fourth wall and share stuff like that. That one was just golden.
Messy habit number 5 is that you can't stop procrastinating. And this kind of goes hand in hand with habit number 4, except it goes beyond just not putting things away after you're done using them. It can also extend to avoiding making decisions about things. Like, let's say that you're trying to declutter the clothes in your closet, but it's such an uncomfortable feeling and you feel so overwhelmed by the task that you just keep pushing it off until the point where maybe your closet door or your dresser drawer doesn't even close because you've just allowed things to pile up for so long. The worst thing about procrastination is that it can become a cycle where the more you put things off, the harder they become to deal with, and the harder they become to deal with, the more you avoid them.
I do totally agree with that, and also then you just feel crappy about yourself. So then the cycle continues because you're telling yourself you feel crappy and that you're crappy for not doing these things, and then the cycle continues because you're like, well, why even bother then? And yeah, I think this also speaks a lot to things like depression, anxiety. This is why I have become a huge fan of doing things in small chunks and not necessarily making massive efforts all at once.
And then the more you avoid them, the more that they pile up and overwhelm you even further. And this can be a tough cycle to break. I am also a procrastinator, and I have found that the most effective way for me to stop procrastinating is to focus on the one small thing that I need to do to take the step towards my end goal.
She doesn't come out and say it, but she is kind of in a way saying, hey, here's one small thing I could do. And often that does lead to, oh, let me do this other thing and another thing and another thing. And even if it doesn't, at least you've done one small thing instead of continuing to let things pile up.
So I'm not focusing on my big lofty goal that's at the top of the mountain. I'm just focusing on that one small step that I need to take that's right in front of my face. And then once I take that step, then I can take the next step after that and the next step after that. And eventually, if you keep taking those small steps, you're going to reach your destination. Also, it might interest you to know that this tendency that we have to procrastinate and put off things that we see as too complicated or not enjoyable actually has a name, and it's called the law of least effort.
I don't know that I've ever heard it as the law of least effort. I think I've I wonder if that's really the definition of entropy. I should probably look that up because I know in high school that was like a whole thing when we learned about entropy and how things want to do the path of least resistance and spread and spread and spread. And of course, one of my friends in high school, and myself included, were like, see, Mom? Entropy! Because, you're a teenager. You don't want to clean your room.
And if you'd like to hear more about this law and the other laws of nature and human behavior and psychology and the universe that can help you declutter your home up to 80% faster, make sure to go check out this video, or I'll see you next week.
Well, Marissa, I still say these are lack of habits, not actually habits, but either way, you are spot on for a lot of these things. I also feel like there still is a lot of deep down things that are unresolved that we don't necessarily deal with that lead to all this clutter and mess often. And of course, you know, consumerism. And I know she is full on minimalist and it works for her and that's fantastic. But for me, as long as I can keep it manageable, that's all that matters. And if you're wondering whether you are organizing your home all wrong, meet me over here with Nick Lewis and you might learn a few new organizing techniques. What are you still doing? Go click on this video.